outside.
I got to go.
Baby, it's cold outside.
This evening has been
Hoping that you
so
drop in.
very nice.
I'll hold your hands, they're just like
My mother will
ice.
start to worry.
Beautiful, what's your
My father
hurry?
will be pacing the floor.
Listen to the fireplace roar.
Really, I'd better
Beautiful,
scurry.
please don't
Well,
hurry.
maybe just a half a drink
I'll
more.
put some records on while I pour.
Neighbors might think,
Baby, it's bad out there.
say, what's in this
No
drink?
cabs to be had out there.
I wish I knew
Your eyes are like starlight
to
now.
break this spell.
I'll take your hat, your hair looks
I ought to
swell.
say no, no,
Mind
no,
if
sir.
I move in closer?
At least I'm gonna say that I tried.
What's the sense of hurting my
I really
pride?
can't stay.
Baby, don't hold out. Baby, it's cold outside.
As some of you may know, I am an Arius squad enjoyer through and through. I love their story and enjoy everything about these characters. Their gloomy personalities, their badass design, and their top-notch voice acting. And most important of all, their Hyrule-focused kits. I invest into these characters to the point where my character building capabilities are crippled for months. Hiyori is my least invested squad member, with everyone else being maxed. Even the blasphemer Azusa is stacked. Suffice to say, I like these characters. Now, I will give my unbiased opinion on the kits and viability, but I am obligated to say that all 4 members are S tier in coolness factor. Without further ado, here is Arius Squad in a nutshell. Without going too deep into spoiler territory, let's cover what the Arius Squad is. Arius is a splinter school that broke off from Trinity and seeks to take revenge on the school. The squad itself is made up of Saori the leader, Atsuko the princess, Misaki, and Hiyori, as well as a former member turned traitor, Azusa. In terms of banner schedule, we get Hiyori and Misaki first, followed immediately by Atsuko. Saori will come sometime later. As previously mentioned, these units were designed with Hyrule Raid in mind. They dominated the first indoor Hyrule, but unfortunately, they didn't see any use in the second Hyrule due to the difference in mood and the release of Summer Hoshino, a busted and game-changing unit for Red Raids. Frankly, it's not certain whether any of these squad units will see use in the third Hyrule when the indoor terrain comes back around. Now, let's cover the individual kits. Hiyori is by far the easiest to cover. She's a backline unit focused on inflicting defense down. Her static ability is mediocre at best, and her EX skill comes with a massive restriction. If you can manage to run 3 or more Arius units in your squad, including Hiyori, you can inflict a massive 51% defense down to one enemy. Any less than 3 Arius units, and you only get 30%. Thematically, it makes a lot of sense to run all the Arius units together, but in practice, it's a lot harder to pull off. Her normal skill inflicts a 10% defense down debuff once every 40 seconds, but this will conflict with Azusa's and Maki's normal skills. Whichever skill is inflicted last will overwrite the previous skill. Which can be an issue since both Azusa and Maki have a much larger defense down debuff than Hiyori does. Hiyori's passive and passive plus both boost her crit damage, but her damage is rather insignificant. Finally, her sub-skill is the standard attack boost. Overall, Hiyori brings high value to Hyrule if you are running 2 other Arius units, otherwise she's not as impressive. She lost the competition for the backline spot to Old Nodoka in the second Hyrule since both have the same attack sub-skill. And we may end up seeing Himari replace both of them in the third Hyrule. Misaki's kit is a little more complicated. Her EX skill drops 7 small zones onto the battlefield in a Hyrule-sized area. These zones do continuous damage that ticks once every 4 seconds and can crit. The skill lasts for 48 seconds and can be refreshed by using the skill again. 2 of these skills will not exist simultaneously. The skill is practically useless outside of Hyrule since the area of the zone is so large, causing most enemies to only take damage from 1 or 2 zones. The position of the zones is always the same, so you can manipulate it to hit groups of enemies. The EX multiplier per circle is tiny, but is compensated by her insanely high attack stat and her sub-skill. Her sub-skill is an echo effect that inflicts 10% of her attacker's damage to enemies affected by a debuff, stacking up to 5 times. As you might imagine, this is perfect for Hyrule since you get 5 debuffs from the lantern alone. Extra debuffs like Hiyori's defense down just helps you get to max stacks faster. In other raids such as Kitin, you won't hit max stacks, so a lot of Misaki's damage is lost. Misaki's normal skill is a large self-attack boost that procs once every 50 seconds. Her passive and passive plus also boost her attack stat, which ends up being crazy high due to her insane base stats. Misaki brings high damage to Hyrule for relatively low cost since you only have to use her EX skill once every other cycle. That's the perk of having a skill that lasts 48 seconds. The downside is she takes a lot of setup to reach her full damage potential. Moving on, let's cover Atsuko. Between her personality, design, and being voiced by Kana Hanazawa, Atsuko is my favorite squad member. In terms of her kit, she's rather unique. She's a badge-equipped dodge tank, who also heals in a large AoE. Her healing honestly feels quite anemic when compared to traditional healers, but her AoE is large and the heal ticks 6 times over 30 seconds. Basically, she's perfect to counteract the AoE damage that Hyrule inflicts. It can also help fill up the Green Lantern. Trying to keep a team alive for the entire 4-minute duration of the insane Hyrule fight can be a massive challenge. Atsuko is meant to help solve that issue. Her blue armor and high evasion also makes her incredibly resilient as a frontliner in Hyrule Insane. She would be a staple for Hyrule if not for the release of Summer Hoshino. Summer Hoshino fills the same tank role as Atsuko, but instead of boosting survivability, she massively boosts the damage output of your team. And in this DPS focused meta, Summer Hoshino easily replaces Atsuko as the Hyrule staple. But while she no longer excels in Hyrule, she does perform well in PvP. Her EX skill heals the team, and the rest of her kit gives her massive amounts of evasion. While her blue armor is a weakness, the release of T7 badge makes all badge tanks much more resilient. Finally, we have Saori. Honestly, I can't say too much about Saori since she hasn't seen any meta play yet. I did some testing with her during Urban Hyrule, but like with the entire squad, she has neutral mood for Urban. JP should be getting another indoor Hyrule before Global gets Saori's banner, so I may do an updated video if she sees more use. Regardless, let's cover what we know now. Saori is a crit machine. She is the first unit with guaranteed crit. Both her EX skill and normal skills are guaranteed to crit. It's not a bait where her crit multiplies 100% or something. In my testing, she always crit her skills even in hard raid with a 50% crit chance debuff. Saori is most comparable to Azusa, which makes sense thematically.
Vanitas, Vanitatum. Vanitas, Vanitatum. Omnia Vanitas.
They're both single target damage dealers with an EX skill that inflicts big numbers. Saori trades the defense down debuff that Azusa's normal skill has for self crit damage buff. Instead of crit rate, her passive is crit damage and her passive plus is attack speed. The big caveat is Saori's sub skill. It's a self attack boosting skill that scales with the number of Arius students you have in the party, and Azusa counts towards that member count despite being a dirty trader. But even with the scaling buff, it is difficult to get the full benefit of her sub. For Hyrule, you'll likely run Esoshino and Koharu in the front line, and then some combination of Akko, Old Nodoka, or Hamari in the back line, leaving you only 2 frontline spots for potential Arius units. So at maximum, you'll get a 36% attack buff, which isn't nearly as impressive as the full 73%. Based purely on theoretical numbers, Azusa seems to be the better damage dealer, in addition to having the free defense down debuff. Saori doesn't fall far behind, however, and the guaranteed crit chance will make her the more consistent option. The best case scenario is we run Saori and Azusa together next Hyrule, but it's more likely that we'll just run Azusa. And that's Arius in a nutshell. The TLDR is the first 3 members are all best in slot for the first Hyrule, but likely get obsoleted with Summer Hoshino's release. I'm honestly hoping a new raid difficulty comes with the next Hyrule. Red raids have been a walk in the park since the release of Summer Hoshino, so we could use a higher difficulty to make them a bit of a challenge again. Nexon has been pumping out new healers one after another the recent banners, so it's not outside the realm of possibility. A new difficulty should mean the return of the squad, but without a new difficulty, they'll probably be benched. That all being said, I'm hoping to snag Atsuko during her banner. Best of luck to everyone else who decides to pull.
Oh, 先生、おかえり。エッチなもの？そういうのはダメ。見つけたら全部没収、焼却。